This program is a collaboration of personal opinions and individual free thought. It does not represent the views or narrative of the mainstream corporate media hacks. Viewer discretion is advised.
And here we go.
Live from the bell tower, taking a stand for your rights, your liberties, and all the bullshit in between. You're listening to Break the Bell Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of week again. It's Monday night. Welcome to the live version of the Break the Bell Podcast.
Hello, beautiful bell breakers.
You know why we're here. We don't know why we're here, but you should. Hopefully, you know why we're here.
Yes,
Do you know why we're here?
I know why we're here.
Why are we here?
We're making the world safe for democracy.
Making the world a better place, one episode at a time.
That's right.
Yes, one dick joke at a time. I don't know.
That's what heroes do.
That's the heroes we all need inside.
That's right.
This week, we are making the world a safer place by discussing fascism. Because fascism is a great thing, and we all need a little more fascism
makes
in our
the world
life.
go around.
Yes, I mean, we got the new fascist dictator in Italy who happens
Yes.
to be a female, who happens to be anti-woman, and
Of course.
the reincarnate of Benito Mussolini.
Nice.
We've got fascist takeovers in Sweden right now.
Yeah, Sweden.
Poland has had fascist takeovers. I mean, there was the scare in France. You remember that? There was
got really close.
really close to fascist dictator in France. And Great Britain, we talked about, they
Yeah.
had almost a fascist takeover.
Yeah.
I think you could probably say that Brexit was a fascist thing
absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
So
it was a very populist movement.
I mean, anything that pushes against that left agenda is obviously
and I think
fascism.
I read Spain is on that train as well.
There's several of them. There's like this populist wave that's sweeping across Europe, and the only thing people can, like the mainstream can chalk it up to is like racism and fascism. It's like, oh, populist movement,
Right.
Donald Trump, racism,
Yeah.
fascism, Hitler, and blah, our brains explode.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, did you ever stop and maybe ask yourself, why are these populist movements gaining traction? And so that's what I want to do today is maybe do what they should be doing in the first place, what real journalists should do, and
Ask
stop.
the questions.
Ask like,
Right.
why are these people voting in popular if they are as terrible as people are making them out to be?
Right.
That's another thing I want to look at is how terrible are some of these people
Mhm.
actually? And then on the other hand, why are people voting them in? Is it like, whoa, just their inherent racism obviously leads them towards fascist
Yeah.
dictators? Now that there's more to it. There's real problems out there that people need to address that aren't being addressed. And so that leads us down this road of populism.
Yeah.
And I think we discussed populism not too long ago.
Yeah,
but,
I think so.
but
too.
not to this extent
Right.
of this,
Not this
like populist wave
populist wave. Yeah.
in Europe. So
And I think I had mentioned to you before, like after Trump was elected, everybody was like, why does America hate it? People different from it, or why are they racist or whatever? And I'd mentioned there was this film producer, Riaz Patel. He's a Islamic gay man. And he wanted to find out why America had turned so hateful.
Mhm.
And so he was producing this docuseries and decided to start traveling around the country. And what he found out was there was no story because there wasn't hateful,
Yeah.
just people just trying to take care of their families.
yeah, and it's like people inherently want to take care of themselves, and when they have their own concerns, they address
Mhm.
their own concerns.
Yeah.
And then if somebody rises up and it's like, I know you have problems and I want to help with your problems, the people tend to lean towards that, whether it's a good leader or
Right.
a horrible fascist dictator. It doesn't matter. There's so many unanswered problems out there, especially like worldwide, but we see it here in the United States. It's like, oh, there's inflation, and the government here's like, what inflation? What are you talking about?
Right, yeah.
Oh, there's an immigration problem. We're not going to call that a crisis yet. I don't see the problem. And then they just start playing politics with it, like shipping the immigrants across the country and stuff. And they're not addressing actual problems. And then they wonder why we get these dramatic political shifts of like the popular opinion or the political opinion. It's just like, no, this ain't working. Let's try something else. And I talked about this with Dave Casey last week, that we're going to see this dramatic sweep shift to the like pendulum shift to the other side once people get to the point where they're just like, no, we're tired of this woke bullshit. I don't want anything to do with any of it. Let's get away from this.
I mean, and look at, the last 40 years, you had LBJ, right, and his leftist New Deal, and then you had Nixon come in, and Nixon was very grounded, right, and then after that, because he lied, people, nobody really voted for Gerald Ford, but then you had Jimmy Carter come in, who was this peanut farmer everybody felt was grounded and down to earth. But he was an asshole, or an idiot, not an asshole. He was an idiot. So then they got Reagan in there, and then they had the Reagan and Bush wave. But then people were tired of that, so they went with Clinton because he seemed like a real dude, right? Cool.
He played the
saxophone. He played the sax on Arsenio Hall. But then people didn't like Slick Willie, so they went GW. And
then it got us into the wars and the terrorists, and then we were all like, oh,
we don't like this guy who can't talk his strategery, so they went with smooth talking Obama.
Yep. And then we got the disenfranchisement, like the racial disparities, I guess, that were just being pushed, and the whole left agenda was being pushed by Obama, and then brought in the era of Donald Trump. And it's just back and forth and back and forth. And but the whole point is, and we'll get into this more, is politicians don't want to actually address problems, and the ones that gain the approval ratings are the ones that are like, oh, you do have a problem. Yes, I acknowledge your problem, and I'm going to do this. Yes, this might be a horrible thing, but I can. It's usually a charismatic leader that can be like, that can word it in a way that's like, yes, killing all the Jews will solve all your problems. Well,
remember with Trump, it was that he swore. People thought that made him angry and more real, right? Because he's like, well, this is bullshit. And they're like,
yeah, this is bullshit.
Because I feel it is bullshit.
Somebody can actually step up and say it. We're going to get more into this after this little pre-show intro. Before we do, we got to obviously mention our sponsor. That is Run Your Mouth Coffee. Proud supporters of fascism. Not at all. Supporters of free speech, supporters of your ability to say whatever the hell you feel like saying, your right to run your mouth, and they also make a damn good cup of coffee. Go to rymcoffee.com, tell them we sent you by using the promo code BreakTheBell, and you'll get 10% off your purchase, plus free shipping, and who doesn't love free shit and discounts? Go to that, RYM Coffee. Support companies that support your beliefs and your rights, like Run Your Mouth Coffee. Check us out all over the social media. Share us far and wide. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find us at Break the Bell Pod, or go to our website, breakthebellpod.com, and you can find links to all of our social media sites. Check out our merch. We got some really kick-ass merch out there. We got the great "Is This Shirt Even Real" shirt, which is in response to our Dead Internet Theory episode we did probably a month ago. We've got our "I Won't Eat Your Bugs" shirt in response to all the globalists wanting us to eat crickets and cricket milk and bug shit.
Literally.
Literal bug shit. So those shirts, plus We Are Not Your Pawn shirt, you can find all of those at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Help support us a little more by buying really cool kick-ass merch like that, and represent us on your personal body, I guess. That's breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Had to stop and think about it for a sec. We'll get through this.
Yes.
It gets harder every time. You think it would get easier, but we're going to get right into this episode. Again, share this all over the place so we can get our name out there and do bigger and better things. Otherwise, sit back, hold on tight. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about the populist wave of Europe. We'll be back.
What did you say?
You talking to me?
What the heck are you talking about?
What did you say?
What did you say? What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
What do you say?
What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Well, maybe he was talking to me.
What did you say?
Talk to me.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, baby.
What did you just say?
What did you say?
You talking to me?
You talking to me?
Are you talking to me?
What the hell are you talking about?
Who are you talking to?
All right, and we are back talking about populism, nationalism, fascism. I don't know. It's all Nazism, Nazi. It's all lumped together as one. Racism, white supremacy. It all gets lumped together. When it pushes against the left agenda, they all become one. Nazi, fascist, racist, homophobic, all the slurs.
And it's interesting. You had a very good not demonstration analogy when you talked about the left and right coming up a circle. And
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
it was.
Yeah,
And
it's like there is no left, there is no right. It's like the further you get from central, you just circle back to like this
Yeah.
totalitarian, fascist, whatever. One person rules
Yeah.
all of it. It's just
and it's funny because I heard somebody on a TV show somewhere give that same analogy, and I was
you're
like,
that-
Craig said
that's
that first.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's like you stole that from me, you motherfucker.
that's right.
So, do I get like some kind of royalties for that or
I mean,
anything?
I got a quarter.
So we're going to get right into this because all of last week, I was going to talk about it a little more last week, but instead we went woke agenda with Dave Casey, which it all ends up in the same spot anyway. So last week, the headlines were filled with the election of Italy's new prime minister. And it was like the build up to it. It's like, is Italy going to become this? It's like the first far right politician since Mussolini. That's like full of the headlines. It's like, what's going to happen under Italy's new fascist prime minister? And it's just like, when you see those headlines, you got to be like, okay, who's this chick really? Like, what's actually going on? Because it's kind of like the same with Donald Trump.
Mhm.
They threw that Nazi fascist.
Right.
I don't even think they know what fascism means
I
anymore.
don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so either.
Because like, I mean, I've heard a couple of her speeches and none of it sounds like fascism. The
Right.
closest thing they got is her party has roots in the fascist, like the ex-fascists from Mussolini's days, like the after World War II, those fascists kind of formed
And
the
isn't
precursor to her party.
her party, isn't that called the Brothers of Italy?
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has like back in the good old days of Italy's fascism.
oh yeah, obviously. So that obviously makes her a fascist.
Of course.
By the same token, though, we can't compare the Ukrainian government to Nazis, even though a lot of their people in power had Nazi connections, but they all disavowed their Nazism publicly. So we can't bring that up because it's
Sure.
Ukraine. But in all these cases, it's like, oh, but roots in fascism,
Right.
roots in the Nazi party, roots in like I'm going to give a couple examples, and it's always, oh, the roots in the neo-Nazis and Mussolini and all this stuff. And it's just all to scare you away from like actually hearing what this person's actually saying.
Yeah.
So I want to dig into her a little bit. So I decided to go to the source, which is MSNBC, to talk a little about the female reincarnate of Benito Mussolini, because
Very nice.
obviously she's got to be bad.
Of course.
So MSNBC, this is the image that they
wow, that's a scary image there.
have. What did they Photoshop out? To
Well, she
make her
didn't
look
have
so
she didn't
scary?
have the mustache, and they're like, she really needs a mustache to like have this Mussolini thing going.
Well, they wanted to give like this dark, but she probably had microphones in front of her, so they had to. This is a horrible Photoshop job. They
no
just like
doubt.
blacked out everything
Disembodied
around.
head, dead eyes.
Does this not say already tell you everything that
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
to say about this chick? It's just like, this is what's her name? Georgia Melani, because it says, even the caption says Georgia Melani speaks during a general election campaign rally in Rome. So why didn't you post the picture of her speaking instead of
Right.
Photoshop?
Disembodied head.
This is so fucking ridiculous. If you're listening in the future, it's like you took a picture of her speech, you turned up the contrast to make her look like, you know, when you hold like a flashlight under
Yeah,
your face telling ghost stories,
Yeah.
and then they blacked out literally everything around her, so it's just like half her face.
Yeah. It looks
floating.
like a horror image for sure.
That's what they're going for, I'm pretty sure.
She doesn't look nice and cuddly at all.
No. So, let's just get into this. This is from MSNBC. It's titled, "The GOP might have a new neo-fascist fave."
Oh my God.
So it starts out, obviously, with a quote from Benito Mussolini.
Of course. That's a good way to start.
He says, "Of course, I do not want women to be slaves, but if I propose to give our women the vote, I would be laughed at." Italian dictator Benito Mussolini told the German journalist Emil Ludwig in 1932.
What does that have to do with her?
Hang on, I dropped my earbud.
Did she say something similar?
No, it's
Okay.
basically like, because it goes on, it says 90 years later, the top figure in Italian politics will finally be female. Because he's like, no, I get laughed at if I let females vote because that's unheard of. And he goes on to say she must not count in political life. So they're comparing her to Mussolini by saying he would have rolled in his grave knowing that a female became the prime minister of Italy. Like,
if
that's
anything,
that's a horrible start to
it
your
is.
argument already.
Yeah. I mean, I'm questioning this writer's choices right now.
It says 90 years later. Oh, it only gets better. Don't worry.
Good.
90 years later, the top figure in Italian politics will finally be female. Giorgia Meloni, head of the neo-fascist Brothers of Italy party, is set to become prime minister after her party received 26% of the vote in Sunday's elections. Il Duce, is that what they call him? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
El Douche might not have been displeased that Meloni will have the job he once filled, even though he said they're never going to be in politics. But given her track record, he might not have been all that displeased. It says, given her past praise for him as a leader. So I've read into this. She gave him praise as a leader. She said he wasn't that bad of a dude when she was a teenager in high school.
Okay.
And she's since then rejected that.
Okay.
And been like, look, I was wrong. I was a stupid kid. And they keep going back. They're like, remember that time she praised Mussolini? She was like 17 years. Who didn't say something fucking stupid?
Yeah.
I supported George Bush when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I would
remember that time that Hillary Clinton said that Mao wasn't so bad.
Yes. Remember that time when Joe Biden said that the Chinese just are a different culture? It says her party's slogan is God, fatherland, and family, and that dates back to Mussolini's regime. Wow. It's just like, what's the country slogan? Like God and God, family, country, or God, country, family, or I mean, but I guess all country fans are fascists too.
Right,
so
that's true.
That's not a good argument. Now Italy's the country to have the first female-led far-right government, ending an era of male monopoly of authoritarian governance.
But you know what? They still beat the United States.
Yeah, that's true. But it's like, yay, they broke the monopoly of male governance.
Right. They broke glass
Boo,
ceiling,
she's
people.
a fascist.
Yeah, well, you can't have everything.
Well, last week I read that they actually uttered the phrase. The statement was, it's not good enough to just be female. That is sexist, and it's overlooking all their policies.
Wow.
It's like, wow, I cannot believe you're saying that.
If you said that here, you'd be hung.
This was a U.S. freaking publication, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like after we get Kamala Harris,
Yeah,
and that Ketanji Jackson or whatever,
yeah.
Specifically because they were of color and because they were females,
Yeah,
not because of the track records.
Yeah, they just checked the boxes.
But because, like, we can't praise this what's her nuts, Giorgia Meloni, because just because she's a female, because that's sexist. And it's just like, do you guys like actually think about what you've previously said before you utter your stupidity?
No.
Says, for starters, Italy will become more enmeshed in far-right networks that stretch from Vladimir Putin's Russia to Viktor Orban's Hungary to Jair Bolsonaro's Brazil to Republican America. So they're going to get enmeshed in all this right-wing bullshit, specifically Vladimir Putin's Russia.
No, sure.
This woman has come out, like, you can say whatever you want about her politics and how fascist she is. She is pro-Ukraine and pro-Israel and pro, like, all the things that we are not really for here. Right. So for them to be like, oh, obviously she's far right, she's going to side with Vladimir Putin. She's already basically sworn allegiance to Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. So basically, the author of this has done zero homework before writing this article.
And he's hoping you did too.
Yes. It's like, well, far right, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, obviously that all meshes together. Right. So I'm going to put this in a big word sandwich here, and you're going to realize how horrible she is. It's like, no, she already swore off Vladimir Putin. What are you talking about? Many of her positions will seem familiar to those who follow authoritarian politicians around the world, including places like Florida and Texas. Oh, all those authoritarian Texans and Floridians.
Those people can't do anything.
It's articles like this, it's sentiments like this that write off a whole entire side of the country as authoritarian extremists that creates populist movements. That creates populist politicians winning elections, because you're just demonizing half of a population, and then then all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, oh shit, why did we get this populist leader? Maybe because you fucking ignored this half the population for the last 20 years.
You just chalked it up to the fact that they were ignorant racists.
Yes. Says LGBT lobbies and same-sex unions that harm the natural family. So this is some of her things she stands against. Like gender ideology. It says Melanie opposes gender ideology, LGBT lobbies, and same-sex unions that harm the natural family. Obviously, that sounds fascist and inhumane. But in reality, Italy already does not have legalized gay marriage. Italy already has just the unions. What was that called?
The
civil unions.
There you go.
And she has not come out and opposed civil unions yet. So basically, she's standing on the same platform Obama stood on in 2008. Did we call him a fascist? Because he was against gay marriage in 2008. Stands against some of these other ideologies. There was a couple more. I can't think of them, but like anti-immigration and stuff. Obama was against like open borders in 2008. Nobody fucking called him a fascist. But now we see this push to get back to, like, I don't know, 2016 or something, 2012, something like that. And all of a sudden, if you are at all against any of these things, you're obviously a fascist.
Right. Yeah. Well, because now Trump has set the guideline, right? He drew the line in the sand. So any policies that are similar to Trump's, you're automatically in line with him. You're automatically fascist.
Right. Beto says this new anti-globalist Italian prime minister, I'm not calling her, I mean, she calls herself, I think, anti-globalist, but apparently she supports digital IDs, backs cult puppet Zelensky, which is what I said, backed Ukraine, and is a member of the cult's Rockefeller-funded Aspen Institute. How very anti-globalist. So, again, I wonder if this is just more controlled opposition, where it's
that's
just
kind of
like,
what it makes it seem like.
do you want fascism? And it's just like, let's throw in this pro-fascist or pro-populist person, when really she probably just touts the same things that...
She's like the Elon Musk of the Italian political world.
So it goes on to say that she has her own version of the great replacement theory. I'm not going to get into all this because I looked into these and I didn't see too much proof of it, mostly because she speaks Italian. So I don't know. But she says, I think there's a deliberate plan to erase everything that identifies us: culture, nation, family, are under attack. How fascist does that sound? To
Right.
say our nation's under attack, our identity's under attack.
Sounds very Trumpish.
Yeah. So it says, ever the pragmatist, like Mussolini, they're really like stretching.
Because she's a pragmatic person, like Mussolini was a pragmatic person, that
Yes,
means
that's
she's
their-
automatically
That's their comparison, because
Wow.
it says she praised Donald Trump at the National Prayer Breakfast. So, like Mussolini was a pragmatic, that's they're loosely connecting dots here. Like,
yeah, right.
it's really
Because she
ridiculous.
has "ini" at the end of her name, much like
Mussolini.
obviously.
Yes. It says she was the only Italian politician invited, because obviously they're like-minded fascists.
Of course.
She praised him for his elevation of God, fatherland, and family. And in 2022, she spoke at CPAC Orlando along with Governor Ron DeSantis. How dare her? It goes on to say, she says, I don't consider myself a threat, a monstrous person, or a dangerous one. She told the Post, calling herself and her party conservative for centering freedom, family, strong borders, and the defense of Italian nationalism. Yet her radical position and belligerent persona suggest otherwise. Listen to this. Listen to this. Take this speech she gave in June at a rally of far-right Vox Party in Spain. You don't need to understand her Spanish to perceive that this is a demagogue whose delivery recalls that of Il Duce. So this was the video. No subtitles. Like they said, you don't even have to understand what she's saying to know that obviously she's a fascist.
No hay mediaciones posibles. O se dice sí, o se dice no. Sí a la familia natural. No a los lobby LGBT. Sí a la identidad sexual. No a la ideología de género. Sí a la cultura de la vida. No al abismo de la muerte. Sí a la universalidad de la cruz. No a la violencia.
Now, what's your thoughts of them just posting this video with no context,
Right.
no subtitles, and saying you don't even have to
Yeah.
understand this to know
Yeah.
that she is following the footsteps of
Right.
El Duce,
Yeah.
Benito Mussolini?
Yeah.
Is that not like the
Yeah.
biggest like fear politics you've
Yeah.
ever seen? They talk about how fascism is all built around the politics of fear,
Right.
and this is what they're throwing in your face as
Yeah.
obviously she's a fascist because listen to her yelling
Yeah.
in Spanish.
Yeah. And all she's saying is yes to the natural family, no to the homosexual agenda.
Yes.
And I mean, and people are like, yeah.
Well, if you actually like gave the subtitles and the context, maybe people would be like, yeah, I kind of understand that.
Otherwise,
but
you're like, whoa, this is an angry Italian fascist lady.
yes, speaking in Spanish, no
Yes.
less. Is not
Who
bad.
does that?
It's not bad enough she'd scream in Italian, but
Yeah,
now
right.
she's screaming in Spanish too. And so it's just like
Right.
that sentence there, I was just like, okay, I'm fucking done with this. This is stupid. Like I can't believe that is where they went with this. It's like, just listen to this. Just listen to this noise.
It's like my grandma when I'd not eat my vegetables.
Yes, and she was a fascist though.
Of course.
Says some commentator counsel us not to be alarmed, pointing to the high turnover of Italian governments to suggest Melani's time as prime minister will be brief. That might be true, but history teaches us that whenever extremism is normalized, its effects remain in culture. Do you want to hear her that she's normalizing?
Absolutely do.
Okay, here's an actual video with subtitles, and I'll read along for listeners and for people that just don't want to watch. She says, this is about what we are doing today. Why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening? There's a single answer to all these questions. Because it defines us. Because it's our identity. Because everything that defines us is now an enemy. For those who would like us to no longer have an identity and to simply be perfect consumer slaves. And so they attack national identity, they attack religious identity, and they attack gender identity and family identity. I can't define myself as Italian, Christian, woman, mother. No. I must be citizen X, gender X, parent 1, parent 2. I must be a number. Because when I'm only a number, when I no longer have any identity or roots, then I will be the perfect slave at the mercy of financial speculators. We don't have to keep going with this, but you get the
point.
extremism
Yeah.
that she's touting there.
It's just horrible.
Yeah, obviously they don't throw that one out there, that video out there with the subtitles and context when referring to her extremism, but that's an example. Like, we're no longer able to identify ourselves by gender, by families, by religious, anything like that. They just want us to be the perfect consumer is basically what she's saying. And obviously that's extreme when it comes to a world where they just want you, as she's saying, become the slave perfect consumer to buy into all their bullshit and make the rich richer. So what are your thoughts of this woman so far?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't sound half bad. I mean, I don't see any extremism. I don't see any, like, like hate her starting up any camps in the countryside.
Start over. I accidentally muted you instead of me.
No. I don't, as I see her talk, she sounds like somebody who is much like what Trump was, kind of looking out for her people. I don't see her starting any camps in the countryside that no one's going to know about, right? She's not going to start throwing people in the ovens just yet.
Not just yet. What is so wrong with nationalism?
Yeah, I
mean, maybe it's my white supremacy coming out, but
privilege.
I don't understand what is
nothing.
What is
nothing
so wrong with wanting to put your nation interests first? When your people are hungry, when your people are jobless, when your people are hurting and have issues, to come out and be like, you know what, we're gonna make Italy great again.
Right.
MIGA. maybe yes. I'm gonna make a MIGA shirt. That's my next shirt.
Very nice. Yeah, no, I mean nothing. But unfortunately, in our day and age, right, it's about social justice, it's about equity. And so when you're talking about putting your country first, you're ignoring all those who, are a victim of the imperialist system, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way they look at it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, that's all fine and good. You're going to put your country first, but you're going to ignore the millions that your country victimized over the last 500 years.
I mean, I understand that to an extent. I understand that. But it's not like we're going out and trying to fix those places.
No.
We're going out and destroying them harder.
Yes.
And causing this migration fluctuation and promoting migration and pushing this whole agenda of like mending and blending and like sweep across, like your culture blend with our, good or bad, it doesn't seem to be working with a lot of people. And the fact is, yes, we did destroy their places, but it's not like we've stopped destroying their homes in the name of humanity or anything. No, we're still fucking up their homes and causing more and more migration.
Look at what we did with Haiti, right? But it goes beyond that, right? Because these immigrants that come over, right? And I'm not saying it's bad. I love immigrants, right? Some of my favorite people are immigrants. But it's those that come over here that want to do away with the culture, right? Like, I'm not going to fly the American flag. No, I'm not going to play I don't like the national anthem. It's racist, right? You make us feel bad when you fly your American flag. So that's got to go, right? Any allusion to your forebears, your ancestors, or the roots of this country are a bad thing, because you have to embrace the new culture that's coming in, and that's the problem with nationalism in their eyes, right?
Well, she basically came out and said, I want to make this a real democracy again, like
elections and stuff.
well, just like honor like the wishes of the people, like a true democracy. And the horrible things are she is defending identity, God, and family, and those three things are the biggest attacks of woke culture for sure. Like, we can't have Christianity because that's Christian nationalism. We can't have identity politics because that gets into like gender identity and gets into this and that. And obviously we can't support the traditional family because that's bigotry to say that we should have families, even just to say we need to build stronger families. That in a way is derogatory.
But that's the problem. You can't support any of the traditional values that are out there without coming across as hostile towards anybody who doesn't fall into that little box.
Well, it's like your country, not even talking about America, your country, some country X has these morals, these values, this political system, this belief system. People are tribalistic. They formed countries because of similar ideology, similar culture, similar beliefs, and then they structured their government around it and what have you. And then now you have these elitists or whatever, these people at the top saying, no, you need to accept all these people and you can't hold on to those values because that's going to infringe on their values.
Right.
And then whether it's right or wrong, people get defensive about that. It's like, no, this is my country. This is this America country.
Right.
No, this is like we believe in, this is Italy. It's the home of the Catholic Church.
Right.
The Vatican, right there in Italy.
Right.
There's probably pretty strong Christian values there, I assume.
Yeah.
Not to mention culture. How old is the Italian culture?
Yeah, right.
Like it goes back thousands of years.
Right.
And so to
one of the earliest civilizations.
Yeah, so to force this assimilation of culture into it, I can see where people would push back and be like, no, this ain't really working for us.
Yeah.
Especially when things start to get violent and ugly, which seems to be the case in some of these countries.
Right.
So I want to continue for a couple minutes on the comparison with Mussolini, because I'm going to read a couple quotes from Mussolini and you can tell me if this sounds like the things that she was saying.
Yeah.
Like we heard that speech and all those fascist things that she was saying. This was the founder of the phrase fascism, Benito Mussolini. So tell me if you think there's a comparison here. The first is, we don't argue with those who disagree with us. We destroy them. That sound like Giorgio Meloni?
No.
What about democracy is talking itself to death? Now, again, I told you, she wants to build back true democracy.
Right.
And he says democracy's dead. The people do not know what they want. They don't know what's best for them. There's too much foolishness, too much lost motion. I have stopped the talk and the nonsense. I'm a man of action. Democracy is beautiful in theory. In practice, it's a fallacy. You in America will see that someday, which I think that's what they're pushing now. Let's see. He says, if I advance, follow me. If I retreat, kill me. If I die, avenge me. It's better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep. I could see her saying that. Can you imagine Donald Trump saying that?
I was going to say, yeah.
You live one day as a lion and 100 years as a squirrel. And they're like, what the fuck did he just say? The fascist state is the corporate state. That was a phrase of, she's speaking out against corporatism. It seems like, where she's talking about, oh, we don't want to be like slave consumers.
Yeah.
That's speaking out against corporatism.
Absolutely.
He says, I have been racist since 1921. I don't know how they can think I'm imitating Hitler. He's like, I'm the OG of racist. What are you talking about?
He's imitating me. Shit.
He says, all within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. That's nationalist, I guess, but that's basically also the state controls everything.
Exactly.
The socialists ask, what is our program? Our program is to smash the heads of socialists. There you go. So what do you think? Sounds just like her?
No, it doesn't
like
sound
verbatim.
Anything. Yeah, right.
Like taking it page straight.
Yeah, she's definitely the reincarnation of Mussolini.
Yeah, what did they say about her? Like Mussolini. Remember? Like Mussolini.
Pragmatic.
Oh,
like
pragmatic, like Mussolini.
Yes, because pragmatism's a bad thing.
Yes. Wasn't Obama pragmatic?
Yes, very much so.
Aren't most like politicians
I
sort
think
of
most people
pragmatic?
look for pragmatism in their
yes, exactly. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I feel like they're really stretching
it's fear porn, right? And like they did with Trump.
Yeah.
So yeah, fascist. He just wants to rule the country with an authoritarian iron fist. That's all Maloney wants.
Yes. Here's one that sounds just like her. People are tired of liberty. They have had a surfeit of it. Liberty is no longer a chaste and austere virgin. Today's youth are moved by other slogans: order, hierarchy, and discipline. Does that sound like her?
It sounds like Darth Vader.
Yes. Yes. Or the Emperor.
Right.
Yes. So I don't know. I found
Yeah, no, it's this MSNBC guy is definitely reaching, trying
what
to
would they have
tie the two
done
together.
if Mussolini, if this was in any other country where there wasn't a
Yeah.
fascist past
Right.
to
Yeah,
balance this
Cuba,
off of?
right?
Yeah.
If she was running in Cuba, would they compare her to Castro,
Oh, probably.
or would they?
No, because I mean, can you?
I was
mean,
gonna say Castro's kind of like a hero to the left, right?
you would think so, but I mean, this is an example. One minor, I mean, it's pretty major, I guess. One example, though, of the populist movement in Europe right now, because as we mentioned in the pre-show, it's not just here.
Yeah.
Like in the last few years, we've been like talking about, well, keep an eye on this because they're saying this fascist person. And it's like, well, I want to see that guy step in because clearly they got something against that person because
Right.
they're calling him a fascist. And whether they're a good person or a bad person, I just want to see how it plays out because when the mainstream is so hard against someone,
Yeah.
I just want to know why. And I'm
Right.
just like, let's just see how this plays out. And maybe that's how Hitler took office.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
They're like,
a
"Hey,
bunch
you know
of
what?
us, a bunch of libertarians were sitting
Yeah.
around. They're like, let's see how this
Yeah.
plays out. And
This
it's
can't
just
be a
like,
bad thing."
oh, that was not good. That wasn't good at all.
Yeah.
So, with all the populism that's taking place in Europe right now, do you find that maybe Trump was ahead of his time?
Oh yeah,
Like maybe
definitely.
if he had stepped in office now and we didn't experience 4 years of this fascism, if he had stepped in office, like say Biden was president first
And
and
then
all
Trump.
this bullshit happened over 4 years that's happening now, and then Trump took over, maybe he would be a little bit more likable, which but the thing is, that's kind of this similar because I mean Obama did his 4 years and that's what gave Trump a platform to speak
Absolutely.
on. But I think with all these other countries, because remember the European Union kind of fucking hated
Oh yeah.
Trump too because he was anti-European Union,
Yeah,
he was
and they-
anti-NATO,
Yep.
he was anti-globalist like trade agreements and stuff. And so, but now that we have like Sweden falling to fascism, Italy falling to fascism, Spain on its way out the door, Poland, it's like maybe they'd welcome him with open arms and be like, "Hey, fascist brother, welcome to the brotherhood of fascism."
Yeah.
Or maybe he's what gave right. I'm sure that's what this is going to lean back to. It's like Trump ushered in an era of global fascism.
I was just gonna say that. I wonder how that would play out if he runs for president again. Are they gonna tie that into him and be like, he did this. He did this.
I keep muting your mic instead of mine when I go to cough. I apologize.
Right.
This isn't the first time that it's not like this is the first time this right-wing populist wave went through Europe, because this did happen and it was looking pretty like a sure thing between 2015 and 2020. Remember, we were seeing all these uprisings, all these like populist.
Yeah. Well, look what happened to Greece.
Yeah.
Was it 2012 when the banks crashed in the economy because of all the pensions and stuff that they could not pay?
Look at the yellow vest movements in freaking, I mean, that might not have been populist, but there was some serious discontent, and a lot of the countries were starting to see like populist takeovers and stuff. Then 2020 came around. Then what happened in 2020?
The lockdowns,
the pandemic and stuff. It's just like we got to put this all to rest.
And you want to talk fascism? I mean, the lockdowns, the mandates, the masks. I mean, being told you can't leave your freaking apartment. Right?
Yeah, right.
So people are tired of that shit, right? They're like, okay, you're calling this chick fascist, but you had us locked down in our apartments for half a year. So let's talk fascism.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know what it means?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like they don't know what the term fascism means, because it doesn't mean, hey, we support traditional values, we support national like interests. That's not it. That's not fascism.
That's the problem. Is like, okay, you had Mussolini, who is the benchmark of fascism, right?
Like he defined fascism.
Yeah, right. He was literally like the t-shirt guy for fascism. But then all of a sudden you have Trump in, and everyone wants to scare you into thinking that's fascism. So they move the goalpost up and be like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's all about, nation first, and he's racist, and he just wants to put his country first. What a fascist guy.
Yeah.
but it's nothing like fascism.
But that set the standard for all these other
right.
populist.
Yeah, now these guys are coming up and they're miles away from Mussolini, but they're going to put them in the same category and say, oh, they're just like Trump. They're fascist.
Yep, exactly.
It's like, you don't know what a fucking fascist is.
So let's move over to Sweden, because apparently Sweden had a right-wing victory in the last
Which is
few
why
weeks
they
too.
want to join NATO now, right?
Yeah, obviously. So this says right-wing bloc wins narrow majority in the Swedish parliament. Says a right-wing bloc that includes a nationalist anti-immigration party won a narrow majority in Sweden's parliament on Wednesday. It was a major political shift in the Scandinavian country that had a decades-long history of welcoming refugees, but is grappling with crime wave linked with immigration. Gee, can you wonder why people would have all of a sudden have some anti-immigration sentiment? A country that's like welcomed, open arms, like come here, and then all of a sudden, like I'll get into later, there was almost 1,000 bombings in Sweden this year alone. There's like 997 bombings. That's like one every couple days.
Yeah.
Or it's like, no, that's not true. That's like 3 or 4. It's like 3.5 bombings a day or something. I don't
no,
fucking
you're
know.
right.
I
Yeah.
can't do math. It's like 3 bombings a day.
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
In this country. That welcomed immigrants, and then all of a sudden there's like these immigrant gangs. They don't want to assimilate into the culture. They just want to form these like little outlier groups and then like blow shit up, and people don't feel safe in their country. And then they come out and they're like, this immigration thing's not working. And then they're like, you're a racist. It's like, no, I just don't want to get blown the fuck up.
Sweden, a lot like France and Spain and Italy, you know, they have these no-go zones where immigrants are they set up, and police won't even go in there. Because if they go in there, they get riots and mobbed and everything. So it's like they just have carte blanche to do what they want.
Yeah, but when you speak out against what's actually happening,
You're
it's
racist.
Yeah. Says center-left Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson conceded defeat with 99.9% of the vote from the weekend elections counted Wednesday. She said she would step down on Thursday. Populist Sweden Democrat leaders. So Sweden Democrats are the opposite of Democrats here. They're actually the right wing.
Gotcha.
The Democrats are, so don't get that mixed up.
Sure.
Swedish Democrats are the right wing bloc here. So it says populist Sweden Democrat leader Jimmy Åkesson declared victory for the 4-party bloc. He said his party would be a constructive and driving force in the work of rebuilding safety in Sweden. He said it was time to put Sweden first. Does that sound familiar?
Right.
I mean, is that a bad thing when there's 3 bombings a day to be like, we're going to back off this immigrant stuff and we're going to put our country first and look. Yeah. I mean, whether you're a good guy or a bad guy, that's what the people want to hear at this point.
Absolutely.
So it goes on to say, the bloc that includes the Sweden Democrats, the country's second largest party, won a thin majority in parliament. Though a few votes were outstanding, they were not enough to sway the final outcome. Goes on to say, while Anderson is personally popular, anxiety in Sweden has grown over high crime rates in segregated districts, like you were talking about, the no-go zones, that are home to a large number of immigrants who have failed to integrate into Swedish society. Some blame her social democrats who have been in power for 8 years. Goes on to say the Sweden Democrats were long shunned by the Swedes because the party, they had to point this out, party was founded in the 80s by neo-Nazis. So obviously there's neo-Nazi ties, even though it says in recent years it moved into the mainstream by expelling extremists. Yeah. But they're obviously the far right, the fascists. Right. Even though this is exactly what happened in Ukraine, they were founded by neo-Nazis, and then they were like, no, you got to denounce your neo-Nazism. They're like, okay, we're no longer neo-Nazis. And then everybody's like, oh, you guys are all conspiracy theorists for thinking there's neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They all denounced their Nazism 2 years ago. Yeah. Well, that happened in Sweden, but yet they're still being like smeared as some like fascist takeover in Sweden. It says, it goes on to say, now it will be enough for the Now it will be enough with the failed social democratic policy. This is the guy that won saying this, that for 8 years has continued to lead the country in the wrong direction. It is time to start rebuilding security, welfare, and cohesion. It's time to put Sweden first. The Sweden Democrats will be a constructive and driving force in this work. And then he says, now the work begins to make Sweden good again. Not great again, just good.
Just good.
Sweden was never great. It was just good.
Yeah.
But now
Let's not shoot for the stars.
Yeah,
people.
let's not get ridiculous.
Let's be realistic.
Or maybe it's like, I don't want to be too Trumpy here.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Or maybe the translation for they don't have a
Yeah.
word for great, so it just translates.
I've heard that
good.
about Sweden. Yes.
Yes.
They don't do great. They only do meh.
Yeah, time to make Sweden okay again. It's so ridiculous. What does Sweden have to offer anyway?
Right? Meatballs.
That's ridiculous. So what do you think of the Swedish thing? Do you think they have serious concerns to deal with here?
The government coming in?
Yeah, like
Or
the people. Like why would they possibly vote in the other side who
Yeah,
has neo-Nazi
because,
ties?
Yeah.
Because maybe
Nobody's
our
doing
country is
anything.
getting shit on
Yeah.
from the outside in.
I mean, wouldn't you when you look at like our country,
Mhm.
okay? It pisses me off that we send trillions of dollars overseas to other countries for no particular reason, right? I mean, we give billions over to Ukraine, trillions dollars to Pakistan and India so they don't blow each other up,
yes.
right? We give billions to Israel because they're there. I mean, and so it's like, and our military is scattered all over the world.
Mhm.
I wish we did have a politician that was like, well, we need to kind of look out for ourselves, and he got demonized by it. But to me, it just makes sense, right? That you take care of your country first.
Well, the problem is they're ignoring
And that's
the
it.
concerns of the
Yes,
people.
because people are like, well, maybe we should close the borders because we've had 3 bombings a day since we've had open borders. Wow, you're racist.
Well,
I can't even believe I'm hearing this.
I cannot
Holy crap.
believe you
Yeah.
said that.
The hate that's running through the
That's
country
your
right now.
white supremacy showing.
Yes.
What are they going to do? Go back and blow up their own country?
Yeah.
That's so racist of you to
Yeah,
assume
right?
that. We did that for them.
Yeah, exactly. They can't
They
do
have
it again.
They have nothing left to blow up because we blew it up for them.
Exactly.
So stop being so
Yes,
racist.
you have enough stuff to blow up that you should be happy with, okay?
So here's an article from the Independent Sentinel. The title of this is telling enough to me. It just shows the disconnect because it says European politics might be moving right due to crime and immigration. It's like they can't quite put my finger on it, but there
Yeah.
is crime,
Yeah.
lots of crime. People are upset about the crime, and people are moving right. So maybe,
I mean, I'm not
maybe.
quite sure. I'm reaching here, but maybe
that
they're
might
tied.
be due to crime and immigration.
Yeah.
I mean, should we even think about that? And they're like, "Oh, you don't want to touch that
Yeah,
one."
right.
It's just
Okay, racist.
it's just funny. It's just like,
Yeah.
we don't know for sure. There's no clear evidence to support this, but maybe it's just like you couldn't even like.
Yeah.
It's like they couldn't even take such a hard enough stand because they were scared of the
Right.
fallout that would come
Yeah.
of posting. So
Yeah.
they had to put, "Oh, it might be due."
And that tells you everything you need to know right there.
Yes, because this is the one that says, well, it starts out, it says, in Europe, political analysts are pointing to Sweden and Italy as possible indicators of European politics swinging right. In once safe and peaceful Sweden, bombings have become regular occurrences. There have been 997 bombings in Sweden so far this year. That's nearly 4 a week. I feel like that's nearly 3 a day.
I was going to
almost
say,
3 a
I
day.
feel like they're way off unless they're going by a different kind of calendar.
Yes. I mean, that's like
And-
two
and
and a
that's-
half a day.
And that's so far this year. The year's not even over yet.
Exactly. I mean, yes. So 997 this year. I mean, it doesn't even matter
that's-
how many a day it is, how many a week it is.
Yeah.
That's almost 1,000 bombs
Yeah.
this year.
That's like traffic fatalities in this country.
Yes.
Like on the East Coast.
Right.
Bombings.
Yes.
I mean, bombings.
yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Fucking bombs.
It's like, oh, I don't know if I want my kid to run to the store to get some milk because they might get blown up.
Yes. And this is Sweden, no
Yeah,
less. This isn't
right.
like third world
Yeah.
something. This is Sweden. says
one
there,
of the happiest countries in the world, right?
supposedly there was a startlingly strong performance of the right-wing Sweden Democrats in this month's Swedish parliamentary elections. Polls show that the Nationalist Brothers of Italy, our girl Georgia's party, is poised for victory in this weekend's contest in that country in reaction to massive immigration and crime. So this talks about Sweden. It says gang violence in Sweden was the issue of the election, said a researcher at the Swedish Institute for International Affairs. Says some are furious, some are just terribly upset. And then it goes on to say in Italy, security issues are being exploited by right-wing forces.
Wow.
So the article goes on to say exploited or just reality. It's like, because that was a sociologist, Giovanni Capani, told Yahoo News. And then the article is like, is that really, are they exploiting it? Or are they just pointing out what's actually happening?
Right.
That there's a security issue and there's violence and there's it stemming a lot from this immigration issue, that all these immigration concerns. You see it in Sweden with the bombs, you see it in Italy, and you see it right there, the excuse, the ignoring the populist concern of, hey, this is a real thing and I'm kind of scared for my country, when they say, oh, this is just being exploited by right-wing forces. Maybe it is being exploited by right-wing forces, but it's also a true thing that's happening.
And no one else wants to address it, not even the media.
Right. It says this June, an estimated 1,500 African youths went on a rampage in northern town of Italy, breaking windows, roughing up tourists, and allegedly sexually assaulting young women on a train. Giorgia Meloni, leader of the what the fuck are you? Go away. Giorgia Meloni, the leader of the right-wing Fratelli d'Italia, is making headway on fears that massive immigration will render Italians extinct. Okay, so you have real concerns.
Yeah.
You have real violence. You have real immigration issues. And yes, you get a right-winger or a populist person that's like, I see you have a problem. I acknowledge your problem. I'm going to do something about it. Oh, you think immigration's the problem? Let's close the borders. And again, like Donald Trump, it's just like, well, yeah, why the fuck wouldn't we vote for you? If this is what we perceive as our problem,
and
you're
addressing it,
and you're going to do something about it,
yeah,
that sounds like a good idea. Let's close the fucking
borders.
borders.
Everybody else just gaslights you and be like, whoa, okay, racist.
Right, exactly. It's like the concerns are spelled out right in front of you, and you want to turn around and be like, no, the real issue is systemic racism in your culture.
Right. Yeah.
And then people are like, wait, I thought the real issue was the fact that our kids are getting blown up.
Right. Yeah.
I thought the real issue, I mean, it's not just immigration.
Yeah. It's like, well, that's your privilege speaking.
Yeah. Let's look at like inflation. I mean, here in this country, inflation. What have they said? Well, Joe Biden came out and he's like, oh, was it just like last week? It's like, oh, inflation's only gone up like an inch this month. It's like an inch. Wait, how do you measure
on a graph?
Yeah,
because that's a lot.
What's the scale? Yes, it's like no, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
I mean, how long did they say inflation's just temporary? How long did they say no, there's no like jobless problem.
Right.
There's no worker shortage. There's no supply chain issue. How long did they ignore the fucking issues that we saw in front of us that were affecting our pocketbooks and say, no, there's no problem here. Just trust the plan.
Yeah. Or Kamala Harris going to the quiet part of the border and be like, oh, see, there's no problem here.
I don't see any immigrants. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or them like for months saying, no, this is not a crisis.
Yeah.
We won't define this as a crisis. This ain't a problem.
Or whenever anybody wanted to criticize Barack Obama, they were automatically racist.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like, well, I don't really like his spending plan. Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, wow.
Did not see that coming from you.
Because you think, is that because he's black?
Yeah, right.
Is that because he's the first African-American president?
Right.
I mean, because that's pretty racist. Like, I didn't say that at all.
Yeah,
I just don't like his
universal
spending plan.
healthcare.
Yeah, I don't like this shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's obviously stems
he's
from
black.
your systemic
If it was
racism.
George Bush, you'd probably like it.
Yeah, it's like how many times do they got to point in the other direction and ignore your problems before you're like, I don't fucking like you. I'm going to vote for somebody else.
It's gaslighting.
And that's why populism wins votes, because populists appease the populace.
Yeah.
that's a tongue twister, but they appease to the needs of the population. That's why they're called populists, because they rile up the population and point out or address their concerns and be like, I'm going to fix this and this and this. Yes, it might be all the wrong ways, but at least those people feel like they're being heard. I mean, go back to like the issue that they have in Sweden or in Spain with crime. That's one of their big things. It's like, well, there's tons and tons of crime. Well, look at the headlines here in the United States today. We've got violent, unprovoked attacks have New Yorkers on edge. There is something profoundly wrong. Okay? Obviously, there's something profoundly wrong.
Sure.
We've got, hang on, let's let it reload. All right, come on. This one says, crime expert says New Orleans violent crime wave could cause people to leave the city. We've got leaders like Candace Owen telling residents of Democrat-run inner cities, don't wait for it to get you. Get out. I mean, that kind of populist sentiment.
Absolutely.
We've got like Ron DeSantis came out this week and warned like hurricane looters that we're a Second Amendment state and you're going to get shot if you loot.
Yeah.
And I mean, the left went on a frenzy after he said this. They're like, oh, that's racist to assume that people are going to loot and to tell them that they're going to get shot. That's racism. I mean, what Joy Reid came out and was like, that's a threat from, that's a segregationist threat is what it was. She called it, because that guy in the 60s, remember that sheriff's like, when you start the looting, we start the shooting or something like that. So basically it's like, oh, that's racism. It's just like,
but you know, white people loot just as much as that's racist for her to assume it's racist.
Exactly. That's exactly what for Joy Reid to come out and be like, you're talking to black people.
Yeah.
You're signaling that black people are the ones doing the looting.
Exactly.
How is that not racist to assume that because I said looter, obviously I'm referring to a black person?
Yeah, right.
It's like, come on. It's like, what the fuck are we even doing here?
Yeah.
So you just see in all these like left-ran cities, specifically, all this high freaking crime and high violence situation. Then obviously that's a gun problem. We need more gun laws. And these are in city, like we know these are in cities where they have the highest gun laws.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that they're seeing in Europe. It's just like, well, let's point over at that thing. It's got to be that, or it's got to be this. This must be the solution. What we need is more social programs. What we need is more gun control.
Well,
and
if we
people
just
are
gave
like,
them more welfare, then there wouldn't be so much crime.
and the people are like, we just need less fucking crime. That's what we need.
Yeah.
And so if somebody like Trump or Candace Owen or somebody like that or DeSantis comes out and it's like, I'm going to reduce the crime rate here. That's all he has to say. And they're like, that's a fucking good idea.
Yeah.
They're not going to ask how. They're going to be like, oh, he's going to get rid of crime. Cool.
Yeah, right.
He's not
We're
pointing
down for that.
Yeah, he's not pointing at all these other freaking issues that these agendas that they want to push. He's like, going to reduce crime. Oh, cool. Got my vote. That's it.
He's not saying, well, there's no crime.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
what crime? Our city's the safest city.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Someone runs off with the TV.
Crime has only gone up an inch in the last year.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's like they're dealing with it. So I do think populism could be a bad thing, i.e. Hitler.
Right.
But again, you create the atmosphere where populism is needed.
By ignoring legitimate concerns of the people. You ignore the people long enough, they're going to find somebody that's not ignoring their problem.
Good
that's
or bad.
addressing their problem. Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to get into a couple of bad examples, one being Hitler, but this happens.
Yeah.
And it's the left or the opposite of the populists are responsible for the rise of the populist movements because they won't address legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
And that even like the mainstream media is just as culpable for it. They're just as big of culprits because they're praising this president for being like having the most popularity, blah, blah, blah. He's creating all these jobs. And we're all sitting here like, where?
Jobs?
What money? What are you talking about? What wages going up?
Yeah.
All I see is inflation, higher groceries, higher gas. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And the media is just like, I don't see inflation over here.
Yeah.
Is there inflation? Nope. Oh, did you see Joe Biden and Jill Biden went on vacation to freaking Martha Stewart's house yesterday, and we're all supposed to be. And
Yeah,
it's just like,
right.
who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Biden put his socks on the right feet today. Isn't
Yeah,
that great? He's such a great president. He's so
Yeah.
down to earth, putting his socks on his
Right.
right feet, and
Yeah.
we're all sitting here with problems.
Yeah.
And our problems don't even compare to some of the problems in like Eastern Europe and
Right.
shit. And so when people like this Georgia Mussolini take office, you just got to look back at it and be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I said, when Trump started running, I'm just like,
I
he'll
mean,
win.
The writing was on the wall with Trump.
Right.
Right?
I had so many people like, there's no way in
Yeah.
hell that Trump because the day of, I've told this story before, the day he gave his initial campaign speech, I pulled out my phone, I texted my brother, I was like, Trump's going all the way. And he's like, no fucking way. I was like, just watch.
Yeah.
He's saying all the things that get
Yeah.
the people, he's addressing their problems.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if he has no real solution
Well,
for
and,
it.
and that was the funny part about it, is because the media didn't take him seriously.
Mhm.
The media protected him because they were scared of Ted Cruz.
Right.
So they protected Trump and made Cruz look like an idiot. And then once they got
well, they made Trump look like a joke forever.
well,
it's just like Trump was the
did,
joke.
But then they, in the debates and stuff, they were like, see how aggressive he took that question on, you know, and but they built him up. They didn't go after him. But then when it was him and Hillary, I almost said Hitler.
Same thing.
Right? When it was him and Hillary, then all of a sudden it turned to be like, oh, well, this guy's
this might be serious. People actually might like this guy.
Right.
They might be taking him serious.
which is too
What do we
bad
do?
because he's a sexist, misogynist pig.
And then they're like, they're still voting for him.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Right.
What people are listening to this guy. Oh shit. Oh, he just won. How the fuck did he just win? And-
why didn't Hillary win?
Yeah, and it's-
Everybody liked Hillary.
Yeah, because she doesn't want to address
Right.
the real problems.
She's more of what
She's-
Obama and Biden do.
She just wants to pander. She wants to
Yeah.
pull her hot sauce out of her purse
and listen to WAP.
and listen to WAP. Yes, she doesn't want to like
Yeah.
come out and talk about real people problems
Yes,
because
yes.
they don't know what real people problems
No.
are.
Oh, and that's it exactly. They don't know the price of milk.
Well, neither is Trump, but he was at least willing to be like,
Well, yeah.
some really smart people told me that milk was really, really expensive. And I know you people I don't like expensive milk. I mean, obviously I don't buy my own milk, but when my manservant goes out to buy my milk, he said milk is really, really expensive. And then people are like, yeah, milk is really fucking expensive. You're
Yeah.
right. He's at least willing to be like,
Right.
yeah, there's a thing, and I'm going to address your thing.
Yeah.
And so people are like,
So
yeah, let's
why
vote for that
have
guy.
politicians not learned this by now?
Because
Do they just not care? Do they think people are just stupid?
well, I think they've made enough sheep by now that they think. I mean, how many people do they stand up and they're like, "Yeah, climate change," and people are like, "Oh, climate change," and they just the greatest threat to democracy is climate change. Oh, climate change. Yeah, just give us everything for climate change, and all they got to do is stand up and be like, "Free shit," and people are like, "Oh yeah, free shit," because I mean, it's going to swing back and bite them in the ass when people, because the worst thing that could happen for the hard left is for the hard left to be in control, because then the people are going to look and be like, oh, they're not doing anything at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't address our problems, but they at least promised us free shit, but we're not even getting the free shit. And things are really bad.
Right.
So now what? And so all that's going to do is open the door for another run from Donald Trump or even a harder populist to come in and be like, yeah, you remember how that shit sucked?
Yeah.
We're going to do something about that today. Day one, end the bad shit. That's all they got to do. And
That's
they
his
win.
executive order.
Yes. And all bad shit for everyone, period. You got my vote.
Right.
Populism right there. It's time for a break. I need to relax my voice before I completely lose it. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. I mean, obviously this is super surface level, but that's what people are, is surface level politics. And so when you appeal to the surface level politics, especially when you're like, hey, you got a problem, let me fix your problem for you. I mean, that's how populism makes a comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they can scare you out of populism, out of fascism, populism, whatever, for so long. And then it gets to this point where people realize they're full of shit too, and they're like, all right, what's the other alternative?
Yeah.
And that's really all this is. It's just a back and forth pendulum. Oh, this option sucked, what's the other option? And then you go over there and you're like, oh, this option sucked, what's the other option? Then we swing back to socialism, and it's a never-ending cycle. So
Yeah.
we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna continue down the path of insanity. So we'll be right back.
Have you ever thought that maybe voting, maybe all this politics constantly surrounding you is not the way to achieve freedom in your life? Hi, I'm Remso W. Martinez, and I ask myself the same question. That's why I'm on a journey to find true freedom in my lifetime. From learning about financial independence, to new ways to develop rugged individualism, to amazing guests living strange, crazy, amazing lifestyles that you've only thought might be real, but actually are. Go ahead and check out my new show, On the Run with Remso W. Martinez at the We Are Libertarians Network. You can find On the Run with Remso W. Martinez on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play. You know how the internet works. Come on down and let's discover how to achieve real freedom in your life together.
Hey everybody, I just want to take this time to give a big shout out to the very first sponsor of the Break the Bell podcast. That is Goulash Media. They can be found at goulashmedia.net. Goulash Media specializes in graphic design, web design, audio recordings, video work, wedding videos, music videos, even political campaign videos. Goulash Media caters to the little guy with the big vision. You can check them out at goulashmedia.net. That's GOULASH media.net.
All right. We're back. We're fascistically back.
What?
I don't know. Being fascist.
Okay.
I'm down. So, after all this debate, would you say you're more or less pro-fascist right now?
I'm going to say I'm probably about the same.
About the same pro-fascist?
Yes.
Is that a good, like, fascist is good or fascism is bad?
I'm still going fascism's bad.
Yeah?
Of course, I rebelled when my parents tried to make me eat my peas. So
that's pretty
you know,
fascist,
yeah.
though. I mean, by the standards that they give of fascism
that would be
today,
fascist.
That's
yes.
pretty fascist.
That is.
So.
Wait, your bedtime's 8 o'clock? And you put up with that?
Right. How dare them? How dare them dictate your life?
Power to the people.
Yes. So, what do you think about this Georgia Melanie so far?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel. Is she taking advantage of the situation? Maybe. But isn't that what politicians do?
Yeah. I mean, what politician doesn't take advantage? I mean, maybe some of these politicians that supposedly are on the right side of morality, maybe they should take some advice and I don't know, maybe stop and listen to the people and address their concerns.
Right? Instead of, but the problem is
instead of pandering, because the problem is they think pandering is the same as listening to problems.
Exactly. Well, and you know, looking at Joe Biden's town hall meeting he did with Don Lemon that one time is a perfect example of that. But it's like, do you feel like there is never an interest to actually solve anything?
No,
because if they solve something, then they're out of work. Right?
Well, yeah.
So they they just have to put a Band-Aid over it.
It's like cancer treatment. They're never going to come up with treatment for cancer because then we don't need them anymore.
Exactly. There's always got to be two sides. They always have to go back and forth, even though, like you said, with the circle, at the very peak of it, they're the same.
Jack Skellington is, or at least was here right at the break. He says, it's good. Been good watching you guys. Good topics. I'm glad you're enjoying our topics because, it's kind of hard to come up with an interesting topic every single week, but we manage.
Yeah, and we don't do fluff pieces.
No, we try not to. I mean, sometimes we'll come on and be like, "Oh, let's talk about this stupid thing," because Jack's still here. He says, "Jack, it's great to have you here. It's great that you've been listening to the show for several weeks now. I don't know how long you've been listening, but it's good to have you here.
Definitely.
I mean, like I said, sometimes we do
It's
lighter,
rare, though.
lighter
It's rare.
pieces, or we just talk about.
We had that fun
conspiracies and
piece
shit.
about the thermonuclear war.
I mean, that was a fun one, obviously. But most of the time, I mean, the world keeps giving us great topics,
Right.
so
Why not take it?
Yeah, we got to take advantage of it. So I got this article from CNN talking exactly about this populist movement in Europe. And it starts out, this is how you know it's going to be good. It says the conditions are perfect for a populist resurgence in Europe.
Ooh.
Again, okay, before we get into this, I got to ask again, is populism a bad thing, really?
I like anything. I mean, I think it could be. You know, it could be taken too far. But I think that, again, people just, I mean, politicians in a perfect world would listen to people.
Yes.
And want to address their problems. And only in our day and age do we make that a horrible thing. Like, oh my gosh, that guy's a populist. He wants to do what the people are asking him to do.
Yeah.
What kind of world do we live in?
Yeah. How dare him, like, listen to the people, especially those racist white people.
Yeah. I mean, the very term populist.
The thing is, they changed language. They've redefined things, because populism, you're only a populist if you appeal to the right.
Yeah.
And the right is obviously racist, and the racists are obviously Nazis. So populism equals Nazism because of that big.
And isn't nationalism just, you know, a bad word for patriotism?
Yeah, but patriotism is a bad word now,
well,
too.
yeah, right. Absolutely.
Because
you're an extremist if you're a patriot.
Yeah, they've redefined words.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, patriotism, racism, populism is Nazism.
Yeah.
They're all synonyms in this world. So this one's from CNN. Like I said, the conditions are perfect for a populist resurgence. You think it was like a terrorist group, like the Taliban resurging in Afghaniland over there. Just the way they spell this out.
Populism's back, and this time it's personal.
Yes. So it says Giorgia Meloni is set to become Italy's first female prime minister. Exit polls suggested on Sunday evening following the country's parliamentary elections. If confirmed, her victory will be historic, not just because of her gender, but because she leads a party that is further to the right than any mainstream political movement Italy has seen since the days of former fascist leader Benito Mussolini.
And I feel like the reason why that is because anybody who looked right was automatically called Mussolini.
Well, and because it was Europe.
Yeah,
It was fucking Europe.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're like 4 years ahead of us in left-wing agenda, or like 10 years ahead of us in left-wing. I mean, globalism started with the invent of the European Union.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, the whole European Union was this globalist agenda.
Yeah.
This whole like, let's mush everything, like blur borders, let's make everybody have one currency, this new world order. I mean, I remember as a child, as a like teenager, thinking in my head, well, the European Union is the new world order, and that was before my conspiracy theory days. So that's how you know.
But I mean, Europe remembers, right? I mean, if you're German, you can possibly grow a mustache, you know, especially if you can't grow a full one, you know, ever, right? Any poor guy who can't grow a full mustache is just doomed.
Right.
and you can't even buy a toy tank.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a throwback to World War II. And so it's like, that's how much Europe holds on to things.
Says her policy platform will be familiar to those who have followed far-right rhetoric in recent years. She's openly questioned the LGBTQ plus and abortion rights. Okay, first of all, openly questioning is not the same as like banning, and that's not fascist. That's not anti-human.
Exactly.
You're questioning. It's like, is this a good thing?
Yeah.
So obvious, all of a sudden that makes you a fascist.
No, she's like
openly questioned.
If you get an abortion or if you're gay, she's going to put you up against a wall and shoot you.
That would be a little bit fascist.
Yes.
She aims to curb immigration and appears obsessed with the idea that traditional values and ways of life are under attack because everything from globalization to same-sex marriage. So all those things are threatening.
And that sounds
traditional
like a typical
values.
American conversation.
Yes, a typical right-wing conversation.
Yes.
It's like our values are at stake here.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand the problem with a country having traditional
No,
values.
there is no
That's what
problem.
countries,
Yes.
that's what nations, that's what tribalism forms out of, is
Yes.
traditional values. Yes, I feel like there are some traditional values like racism and slavery that probably needed to go away. But when it comes to certain things like your belief system and stuff,
Or just a nuclear family, right?
yeah, well,
is that so bad that you have?
that's
a nuclear
misogyny.
family? Of
That's
course,
misogyny.
right?
Stop it.
Okay.
Says it should be of little surprise to learn that one of her biggest fans is Steve Bannon, the man. Obviously, we got to tie it to Donald Trump.
Of course.
The man who largely created the political ideology of former U.S. President Donald Trump. Everything ties to Donald Trump. Everything bad in the world ties to Donald Trump. Her likely victory comes off the back of recent triumphs for the far right elsewhere in Europe. Again, this is just an example of the mainstream media looking the other way and ignoring there are real fucking problems here. They're like, oh, she was elected because of all these other far right victories. She's just following suit. She saw, hey, this was a package that worked. This far right extremism, people seem to vote for that. So that's why she won.
Right.
Not because Italians have real concerns.
Yeah.
Not because there's real immigration problems, real violence problems, real economic problems out there, but because of triumphs of far right elsewhere in Europe.
Because that's how they explain it away.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, those aren't real problems.
It's because this just all started with Donald Trump. That's why we have it. It's like, no, this all is coming because somebody is actually taking the time to attempt to address problems, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Here's a picture of her with Steve Bannon. For some reason, I feel like that's Photoshop, but who knows? It says, in Sweden, the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats are expected to play a major role in the new government after what we talked about all this stuff. So Sweden and Italy are the topics of far-right fascism right now. So this is what they say. This guy is a member of a far-right party in Germany, the AfD. So this is this guy. Gunnar Beck is his name. He's a member of AfD, a far-right party.
Most right-wing name I've ever heard in my life. Gunnar Beck.
Yes. So it says the AfD is a far-right party that became the first to be placed under surveillance by the German government since the Nazi era. So obviously far-right Nazi fascista type. But this guy said this. Where is the momentum coming from? This is this guy pointing out. Yeah, this is Gunnar Beck pointing out where this may be coming from.
Okay.
The cost of living crisis is undermining governments and European institutions. Of course, the war in Ukraine has made things worse, but things like the European Green Deal and monetary policy from the European central banks were pushing up inflation before the war. The erosion of living standards means people are naturally becoming dissatisfied with governments and political establishments. So after they blast him for being part of this neo-Nazi faction, he comes out and says these things, and they're just like, he's just a fucking Nazi.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he's at least pointing out, spelling out real concerns that they're right there in their face. It's like, these are the concerns. These are the reasons why this is becoming a movement. Cost of living going up. The war in Ukraine making things hard. The Green Deal making in monetary policies really hurting people's pocketbooks. CNN goes on to address his concerns by saying, crisis always creates opportunities for parties in opposition, whatever their political ideology. But the politics of fear in the context of crisis does tend to lend itself more readily to right-wing populists. That's their response.
Yeah.
He spells out, these are real people's concerns. And they're like, that's just politics of fear.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, that answered nothing. That didn't answer a fucking thing. So you wonder why they're voting for these populists is because your solution is, that's just fear politics.
Yeah.
Even though everything is fear politics, from, hey, look at this lady screaming in Spanish. Look how scary she looks. I mean, is that not fear politics?
Yeah. Or to Biden being like, I am the dawn coming after the darkest night.
Right. Yes, it sounds like a quote from Batman.
Right.
It says, why does crisis create such a unique opportunity for right-wing populists? Most research shows that conservative voters have a greater need for certainty and stability. When our society changes, conservatives are psychologically tuned to see this as a threat. Again, they're just blowing this off as, oh, the conservatives just see, and people are like, wow, society, they're just playing it off as society's just changing. No, it's like, I'm fucking poor.
Yeah.
It's like people, like there's an energy crisis right now. There's a food shortage right now. There's inflation out the ass, or just up an inch up the ass, I guess.
Just an inch.
I don't want an inch up my ass either. But they're like, well, conservatives see any society change as a threat.
Yes, and I remember sitting in my history class in school years ago, but I remember my history professor, who I really liked actually, but him saying that conservatives they're afraid of change, right? They like things to stay the same.
That's the definition of conservatism, or conserving.
But I consider myself, for the most part, conservative. But for me, it's I think change is important. And what I don't like is that nobody actually changes anything. They just keep using the same old tactics to come to the same old conclusions.
Sure.
Rather than blow the shit up and start over again.
You want to blow the shit up? You want to hit the Great Reset button?
Blow the shit up, man.
Isn't that the Great Reset?
No,
Is that what
that's a totally different thing.
So they go on to say, it's far easier to unite people against real changes or perceived threats like energy crisis, inflation, food shortage, or immigrants. So was that the real change or perceived threats? So, because like they're almost making it sound like, hey, you're just making this shit up.
Right.
Like, these aren't real problems, people.
Yeah.
And they feel pretty fucking real to most people.
Yeah. Why don't you quit your $300,000 reporting job and try to get a job normal people have and see how life goes then, right? When you have to actually look at what the price of your groceries are and decide if you can get the real butter or the fucking fake margarine.
Nobody likes the fucking fake margarine. So it goes on to say, the paradox of populism is that it often identifies real problems but seeks to replace them with something worse. This is from the author of From Fascism to Populism in History. So, I mean, they make a good point there. Yes, it does identify problems, and sometimes it does replace it with something worse, but at least they're identifying real problems. That is something that the other side just wants to ignore is the real problem.
Whose fault is that, though? Right? Whose fault is that if it gets replaced with something worse?
Yeah, the people that created the problems.
Right. The people that ignored it to the point where people wanted something worse because at least it was different.
It's like whether the populist leader is good or bad, they're identifying problems that ultimately have been ignored for years and years and years, and is just bubbling, and it's like brewing this like thing about to implode. At least, like I said, at least somebody's identifying the problem. They are filling that gap that should have been filled in the first place. Whether, I mean, if it's a evil dictator, well, that's your fault that you allowed them to get to that point where they're like, I'm the only solution for this, because you didn't give us a fucking solution.
Exactly. Remember when Obama was like, oh, well, you just want to cling to your Bibles and your guns?
Yes.
I mean, that's the most asinine response I've ever heard in my life.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of the right-wing people are going to be like, yeah, we do want to cling to our Bibles and our guns. Yeah, that was kind of the point we were making when we tout the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, freedom of religion.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, thank you for clearing that up. But yes.
Yeah.
Jack Skellington says, Great Reset is make more slaves, blow TSU, slaves revolt, and natural selection occurs.
Thank you, Jack.
I mean, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. So Politico, I found that Politico said it, like pointed it out best. They said, let me pull this up. They said, meanwhile, because it goes into all this same bullshit, but they said, meanwhile, voter anger over migration, a clear driver in several of the electoral contests, was oftentimes ignored or lambasted as nothing but racism, with most of the right-wing victories being chalked up to disinformation. And that said everything. Yeah. It's just like, well, you're just racist. That's misinformation. That's fake news. No,
that's your privilege talking.
Yeah. This whole immigration thing, that's all disinformation. Right. What are you talking about? There's no immigration problem. That's just right-wing conspiracy theories. Yeah. So it says, because it talks about the EU and how they respond to this this populist movement. Because the EU's totally against the populist
No,
movement.
absolutely.
Did you hear what the head of the EU said when she was about to get elected?
Mm-mm.
It says it's almost as if the bloc was trying to reinforce its lack of appraisal when just days before this year's Italian election, von der Leyen, who's the leader of the EU, threatened to use tools to make Italy comply with Brussels. So basically, she said that they have tools to deal with, not basically, it's literally what she said. We have tools to deal with Italy if things go a difficult direction. So
Wow.
if this doesn't go the way we want it to,
Yeah, we'll change it.
we'll change it for them.
Wow.
Apparently, they did this in Hungary because it says,
Yes, I remember Hungary.
when Hungary overwhelmingly re-elected Orban, the European Parliament responded by branding the country an electoral autocracy.
Wow.
So the people voted for this guy, and they're like, "That's just an autocracy."
Yeah.
What's an Isn't that like an oxymoron?
Yes.
Electoral autocracy.
Yes, very much so.
Says rather than trying to understand his popularity and to combat the far right in Poland, Brussels simply cheered when the former president of the European Council, Donald Tusk, became leader of the Civic Platform opposition party once again in order to take down the ruling PIS. In each of these cases, there remains a persistent unwillingness to understand exactly why populists and the far right are succeeding.
Yeah.
So it's like we want to throw around, populism and fascism, and nobody actually wants to stop and be like, well, why? Why are they winning? Why is there this wave? Besides saying, well, it's just a bunch of fucking racist people.
Right.
So
and you know what? That has been working for them for years. So why stop now? Right?
It says von der Leyen, the EU chick, did mention migration in her State of the Union address. So she did acknowledge at least migration, but it only received one sentence near the end, and much more attention was given once again to fighting disinformation.
Yeah.
Says it's important to acknowledge that not every right-wing or populist election win is due to disinformation. Such victories often occur because of real voter frustration. Would you have imagined that?
Yeah.
That people might have real issues and they might vote for somebody that might promise to take care of those real issues rather than saying, no, that's fake news.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
that's disinformation. I mean, here in the United States, we have 50% of our population, half the population being told that we're fake news or we're disinformation or like 70 million people's vote doesn't
Right.
count because of extremism and shit like that. It's just like,
yeah.
Talk about fascist. Like, what's more fascist? Like wanting to on RIP Bill. It's a miracle, Shannon says. What's more fascist? To want to protect your country and have some sort of national identity, or to disenfranchise 50% of your country? What's more fascist in your opinion?
I mean, that's an easy one, right? I mean, it's like people want an identity. They want to be seen.
Yeah.
And so when you tell them they can't have a voice because it's too extreme,
right?
You're disenfranchising them. And yeah, that's fascism to me. Everything that happened from the virus on was fascism.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Controlling
Probably
the narrative.
Way before that. Way after that.
Yeah.
So what's more fascist? This Italian leader that wants to support traditional values, or the EU that says, if you vote for the wrong person, we have tools to deal with this.
Right?
Like, what's more fascist?
That sounds like the most Nazi line I've ever heard in my life.
Like,
we have tools to deal with you.
I mean, you have to hear that in a German accent. But here we've got a president that calls half the country extremists. We've got real voter frustration. We've got real attacks on traditional values and they're calling us racist because of that. Real immigration problems that are being ignored and called not a problem. And you're a racist if you think that we should maybe slow down the illegal immigration here in this country.
Yeah.
All these same concerns that they have over there in Europe, we deal with those, and we have a president that's like, fuck you.
Right.
Pretty much just like,
it's just
fuck
an inch
off.
of it, right?
It's not even to the point now where they're like, aren't you guys just a little bit carried away? Now it's just like, you guys are freaking Nazis and extremists and terrorists. It's like, whoa, how did we get to the point where half of the country, I mean, do you even understand the word extreme? Because 50% cannot be the
Right.
extreme.
Yeah, exactly.
It's by
Yeah.
definition 50%
Yeah,
can't
I
be
mean,
the
if you
extreme.
tout your Second Amendment right, you're considered an extremist.
Yes.
Right.
If you tout religious beliefs,
Yeah.
you're extremist. If you say, I don't trust this vaccine, you're an extremist.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to wear a mask, you're an extreme.
Yeah.
Like, we've really watered down the term extremism.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. They
You got
moved
all
the
the
goalpost
you
up.
got Al Qaeda sitting over there. It's like we worked really hard to come up with
Yeah,
to get.
right. You know how hard we have to work to be extremist, and you
Yes.
keep moving it up.
And all you had to do was not wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's like, this is bullshit. It's so ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like if you have someone that is willing to like actually acknowledge that you have concerns.
And that's all people want from their leaders.
Yes, they just
right?
want. I mean, we're selfish people. We just want
Yeah.
to be acknowledged.
Right, exactly.
It's
We
like, I
want
got this problem.
We want the people
right.
that we vote for to actually listen to us.
Yes, at least pretend to listen to
Yeah.
us.
Right.
Like it used to be that politicians were like, "I'll take that into consideration."
Yeah.
Now it's like, "Well, fuck you."
Yeah. Right.
It's
like, it really
Excuse me?
is that the problem you want to focus on?
Yes.
Racist.
Yes, exactly. That's your white privilege showing
Exactly.
right now.
Yeah.
So
You wouldn't feel that way if you lived in Africa.
right. I mean, yes, there's starving kids in Africa. I've been told that.
Yes,
about
I've been told that
not
as
eating
well.
my vegetables. Back to not the fascism of
Yes.
being told to eat your vegetables.
Exactly. It's a real thing.
So again, people will step up and acknowledge that. And yes, that will get exploited. You will get good leaders, maybe. You will get probably a bad person.
Yeah.
Look at fucking Hitler. Look at pre-Nazi Germany where they
Yeah.
were sitting. I'm not saying we're anywhere near pre-Nazi Germany. But you had people that they were sitting at like 29, 30% unemployment.
Yeah.
You had like the reparations from World War I, where a good chunk of the population was like, we got stabbed in the back by, and they were told this, they're like, we got stabbed in the back, we got screwed over, and now we're paying for this war. And then the Great Depression hits, and America stops lending Germany money, so now they can't no longer pay those reparations. And you had a bunch of people that were like, you know what? We don't like this. Can we just not pay these reparations? And the Weimar Republic was like, no, we're not going to do that because then people get pissed off at us. And then some guy comes on scene, some charismatic guy, and is like, you know what? I hear you have this problem. I fucking have a problem too. Let's do something about it. And everybody's like,
Yeah.
we like that guy.
Right.
Because
He's listening to us.
he'll actually do something about it. Yes, that was not a good example of populism. It turned into really bad shit.
Yeah.
But somebody was willing to fill that gap,
and that's,
unemployment went through the floor.
Right.
Like everybody had jobs at that point.
And that's the problem, is that so leadership is there, they listen to the problems, they take control, and they deal with it.
Mhm.
When there's an absence of real leadership, it creates this vacuum, and anybody can fill it.
Yeah.
And they're going to follow the person who says, hey, I'll lead you through the storm.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's like, again, as we were saying, if you don't want this fascist dictator to take over, maybe do something to address the
Deal
concerns
with
of the
it until
population.
it gets out of control.
Yes. Mussolini, the Mussolini guy that they're comparing to Georgia to. I mean, he came to power for the same reasons. It was post World War I, total economic devastation.
Yeah.
People were like pissed off about like how the king was handling it, and he's like, oh, I can do something about this. He completely exploited it, the people's concern. Says, like many Germans, Italians believe that the old political elite had betrayed the nation. The general population, primarily the Italian middle class, became increasingly disenchanted with the nation's political class and system. Sound familiar? Maybe with what's kind of going on around here? I mean, we feel completely disconnected with the political system that we have here, and they wonder why we don't like them so much. It says the post-war economic and political circumstances in Italy created a great deal of unrest and disillusionment. Mussolini was fully prepared to exploit the opportunities. Sounds exactly like what happened with Hitler. It's just like you get a bad dude like Hitler or a bad dude like Mussolini. That's like, you got problems, I can fix those problems. I invented this term called fascism. It sounds awesome. It's going to be this awesome thing. We're going to make you all rich. We're going to make y'all not have all these economic woes, and we're going to go to war with people.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about all the bureaucracy of all the people in the Senate or Parliament arguing.
Yeah, I'll take care of all that
It's just
for
me.
you. Yes. Yeah, you don't have to worry about all that. They're not going to like tie everything up in Congress or whatever. It's just me. I'll handle your problems. You bring your problems and concerns to me. I'll fix them. We'll get unemployment down.
Yeah.
We'll get the wealth back up, and everybody's like, it can't be worse than what's going on right now.
Dealing with, right? 3 explosions a day.
Yes.
Right? Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants 3 explosions a day. It seems like all of the populist movements that we've seen today all are stemming from immigration.
Yeah.
Like we do have economic issues, but like specifically in Europe, a lot of it's coming from the immigration thing.
Right. Which
Donald
they
Trump's
tie the
platform
economic to the immigration as well.
Obviously. Yeah, exactly. But like Donald Trump's uprising or whatever came from immigration concerns. Right. And all these governments, whether it be the EU or us or like our government, the United States government, all they want to do is sit on their thumbs and refuse to call it what it is. We have an immigration problem. Well, there's no such thing as an immigration problem because that would be racism. Are you calling them a problem?
Yeah.
No, I'm calling the hordes of millions of people just flooding across borders, not wanting to assimilate. And another thing is this is racist to assume that immigrants are going to assimilate into your culture too. So then, yeah, you can say Georgia Melani or whatever is racist because she wants to prop up the traditions of Italy. It's like, well, what do you do? What do you do just when the culture doesn't want to assimilate? And they're just going to blow shit up if you don't follow their rules. They're cutting off people's heads in the streets and shit.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck do you do? How do you not be racist in that situation?
Shooting up journalists who portray Muhammad in an ill light, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
Right. It's no wonder even the most racist dictators gain traction when you have immigrants blowing up shit and cutting off people's heads. I mean... That's not racist to just call out what's happening, but it's easy to see how a racist dictator like Hitler can be like, the Jews are the problem, or somebody nowadays to be like, well, obviously it's the Muslims or it's the Mexicans, or Trump saying, oh, those shithole countries over there. It's like, even if they are the most diehard racists, it's easy to see how they can gain traction and gain interest in the public when the public perceives immigration as the problem. Their solution is some racist solution. You can be like, well, at least I guess it's going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And you can really bring out people's racism at that point too.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's all as racist as they're claiming. They're just crying everything is racist.
Yeah.
But you can see how racism can come out of that.
How do you... People are afraid to speak up when you're going to threaten them and call them racist. Right. So it makes people afraid to even point out that there's a problem, right? Nobody wants to point out that the emperor's got no clothes,
right?
When everyone's going to call them a pervert for noticing, right?
It's like, why are you looking at him naked?
Right.
Like,
Sicko?
Because he's fucking naked.
Right.
So we're in this culture, this globalist world. Not yet, where the EU or the WEF or whoever have this plan of this giant melting pot of cultures where we all just meld together. How's that working out?
Right.
Like, how's that working out in Europe? Because again, Europe is 4 years ahead of us, at least. And you see all the people pushing against that now. And over here, it's just like, accept everyone, accept all races, all cultures. It's just like, it only works so long before that melting pot turns into like a freaking nuclear bomb.
Well, but it also only works as long as all the cultures are valued.
Yeah.
Right? When you start devaluing the pot.
But when your ideology doesn't have the same values as this ideology, like it's like a chemical reaction.
You're right. Yeah.
certain cultures can't intertwine.
I'm
as
sorry,
racist
sir,
as you want to say that is,
we don't marry 12-year-old girls here,
yeah,
right?
well, that's their culture. You
Right.
gotta, or we don't have a what's the
honor killings.
The honor
or-
killings. Yeah,
right,
we don't chop off people's heads because they weren't wearing
Yeah.
their freaking burqa
I know it's
today.
upsetting. Your daughter won't listen to you, but you can't kill her.
How do you bring that together? Like somebody that's hardlined like Italy that has like ingrained culture for thousands of years. How do you intertwine cultures that don't mesh with that? Like what serious, like literally what's the solution?
Yeah.
The solution to populism, I guess, would be acknowledging that people actually have problems. I mean, that'd be a good place to start. I mean, that shouldn't take a genius at all to come to that understanding. I probably just lost my fucking like audio recording too. That pissed me off the most, but that's all right. Acknowledge that there's actually real problems out there.
Yeah.
Address those real problems. Number two, stop making up bullshit statistics to say how there's not a problem out there. Like, well, the inflation's only up 1 inch, or we've created 70 billion jobs. So the economy is doing great, Jack. Yeah, stop making up shit, because that doesn't address the problems. That just like you said, puts a Band-Aid on the problems.
Yeah.
Number three, stop villainizing the people that have the problems or that have the concerns. Stop calling the people racist that are like, this isn't really working out for us.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll stop voting for the populists that are like, oh yeah, I know you have a concern. Let me do something about it. So
I mean, it's a novel concept, that the public servants actually serve.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, that's crazy to think that.
Right. And I mean, it goes back to, Biden standing up there at his what is it, State of the Union, and saying, we are the people.
Yes.
Right.
No,
Pointing to the government.
We, the government, are the people. The people, not
but-
you people, we people.
So the you
but
people's
we're
problems is
fascists.
not people's problems.
But we're the fascists,
Right,
For
yeah,
thinking
exactly.
that that's a problem. That he
Right.
said that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's because
exactly.
you guys are fascist. No, again, you don't know the different definition of fascism. Apparently, clearly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Those are my solutions to getting past the populist movement. Is maybe start addressing problems that the population has. I mean, that seems to be logic, but the government doesn't seem to get that through their thick skulls.
No.
And the media doesn't, because they're like, well, they're obviously fascists. It's like, no, they're just people who have problems and they want solutions, and you're not addressing their problems.
Yeah. So until they do, every couple of terms, you're going to have a populist wave wash through.
Yeah.
To try to clean house.
Yeah. To come in and say, we need to make Sweden good again, or we need to make America great again, or we need to make Italy again.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean,
mega.
Yes. Freaking mega. That's all I got, because I feel like we're probably going to freeze up again. So,
yeah.
I was on a roll. We were on a roll, and the technology ruined that for us. So, let us know what you think. What do you think about this populist movement out there? Is it a good thing? I feel like there is some value into
I absolutely
the pendulum shifting back and forth, because
it's accountability.
I mean, I'm not saying let's shift full into Nazi Germany
No.
and then back into full blown communism, but there's got to be a shift at some point to kind of bring some kind of balance back into this.
And the scary part is, and I know we're trying to wrap it up, but the scary part is that we are due for some shithead to make another move again.
We are due for an actual dictator out there.
We are.
We're due for another Hitler. As shitty as that sounds, we are long overdue for a Hitler.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump was not the Hitler
No.
that we are all looking for.
No.
Not saying I want another Hitler, but it's got to, and that's what I talked about with Jack Casey. It's got to swing back, like with the whole woke stuff, where you've got I don't know, you've got kids going to strip shows of transgender strip or like what do they call them? Drag shows.
Yeah.
You're gonna get people that are just like that. We're like, oh, okay, let you be who you are. Let you call who you are. Then all of a sudden they're gonna be like, wait, no, fuck that. We're not gonna sexualize the children. Let's get rid of all of it. Fuck it all. Let's get rid. And it's going to swing hard back to the right because people are going to get to that point where with anything, whether it's like immigration, whether it's inflation, where they're like, screw this. We don't want any of your bullshit, your green agenda, your social agenda, any of that shit. We want a change, and it's going to just slam back to the right, and it's probably going to be super freaking ugly because the further left they push it, the harder right it's going to come
and
crashing
like you
back.
said with your little demonstration,
it just
circles back around.
like Jen Psaki.
Yeah,
I miss Jen Psaki.
I do too.
That's all the time we got for this show. We apologize for the technical difficulties. Thanks for the people that were chiming in, and let us know what you think about all this. Is populism really as bad as they say it is? Is this Italian Mussolini chick the dictator, the fascist dictator that they say she is? What do you think of all this? Because it seems like a lot of noise for not so much of a problem, but who knows? Maybe she is the incarnate of Benito Mussolini, and she's going to try to take over Europe in a fascistic way.
Yeah,
who knows?
She'll team up with Merkel still in Germany. No, it's
no, Merkel's gone.
Merkel's gone.
Yeah, they probably got a fascist.
Be
I
like
don't think Germany will ever bring back a far right candidate because they're like, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
That doesn't look good to us.
Exactly.
You remember Hitler, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that. So yeah, let us all know. Let us know what you think. Check us out all over social media. Share us far and wide, all over the interwebs while we're still around, because that's how we get our name out there, to keep doing awesome shows like this one. Keep talking about the interesting topics that we talk about here. So check us out. You can find us at Break the Bell Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check out our merch store, like we said, at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Otherwise, be back here next week as we do this all over again. Same time, same channel, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time every Monday night. Do it. We'll have a blast with it.
Always do.
Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace.
Goodbye.
The Break the Bell podcast is brought to you by you. So pat yourself on the back, because without you, we would be talking to ourselves. A special thanks to our Patreon members, Justin Zielinski, Remzo Martinez, Stephanie Parker, and T.O. Jacobson. A shout out to our sponsors, Run Your Mouth Coffee, the On the Run podcast, and Goulash Media. If you'd like to help support us, visit patreon.com/breakthebell or buy our garbage at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Get back here next week and let us continue to invade your ear holes. And as always, never stop talking.